Welcome to another episode of Founders Club. Today we're going to be talking to Kevin Bupp. He is the founder of the Sunrise Capital Group and also the best-selling author of the book The Cash Flow Investor. We're going to be talking about how he makes millions of dollars for his investors with mobile home parks and how you can too. If you have any questions, put them in the box down below. As always, make sure you check out the links in the description. And if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button and we'll see you on the inside.
Welcome to Founders Club, the show for real estate entrepreneurs.
Kevin, welcome to Founders Club.
Yeah, Oliver, thanks for having me, man. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I love it. Me as well. So one thing I know that you're big on is cash flow real estate, and that's something that's obviously exciting for all of us as investors. And just kind of talking about that, I'm hearing more and more from even like the gurus and people that cash flow is getting harder and harder to find. And so I'm really excited to have this conversation with you and kind of get your thoughts on all that. But why don't we start there that, with interest rates where they are and the market where it is cash flow harder to find and how are you approaching it?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think the simple answer is yes, and right, and I think a lot of it relates to the bid-ask disparity. With sellers basically, having maybe price points stuck in their mind of what it would have been worth. In the height of the market, 2021, 2022, before rates went up, to realistically what it's worth today after rates now have taken a massive jump, right? I mean, like ultimately when rates go up, typically cap rates go up, which means values go down. And so, but with all that being said, we have worked quite a bit harder to find assets over the last 2 years that have penciled for us, that ultimately still fit our buy box, fit our parameters. And interestingly enough, we've literally had our best 2 years. Last year was one of our biggest years, and this year we'll actually trump that by about 10 million. We bought about $100 million of assets last year, and we'll close out this year. Literally have a large deal closing this Friday, and then one on the 27th this month, and that will basically push us over the $110 million mark for the year. But with that being said, I mean, we underwrite. We've underwritten. We look at even probably about 3x the number of deals in the last 2 years. And kicked out the majority and really worked hard to find the ones that truly fit our buy box. And, the fundamentals haven't changed, Oliver. Like literally the fundamentals are what they are. We're disciplined. We've got a certain criteria. We don't try to, financially fabricate the deal, on the pro forma and act as though it makes sense when it really doesn't. And so for that reason, like literally, we weren't strong buyers in like late 2020, 2021, 2022, when rates were low and everyone was going gangbusters, buying
In the
like
giant
crazy.
hype cycle.
We weren't, it's funny because like I've been through this before. I built up a big portfolio, lost, crashed and burned in 08, had to started rebuilding it in 2011. And while it was the world was different then, the economy is different, the real estate crash was for different purposes. What I didn't want to do is have to do it a second time around, right? I didn't want to have to, or I guess you could say a third time, however you want to look at that. I didn't want to do it again. I don't want to crash and burn again. And so it just made me be even more uber conservative. And, there was times within our organization, I'm mostly on the acquisition and ops side. So I basically identify opportunities. My team, we've got a team of analysts. We underwrite things, make sure that they fit the buybacks or don't. And then ultimately I kind of run the ops side of the house as well. We're vertically integrated with property management, but my business partner runs call it the capital raising, the financial house compliance side of the house. And so if you had to bifurcate the company down the middle. And so he's, when there was capital flowing in 2020, 2021, 2022, so he's got capital coming in. We have a great track record already, but he's got, Kevin, hey man, what's the deal pipeline look like? And I'm like, buddy, I don't know what to tell you. It's good, but it's not great. I've looked at a lot of deals. I can't give them the pencil. Everyone else is. I don't know what they know that I don't know. There's some times I lost sleep because I was like, what the hell don't we know that everyone else knows? Everyone's buying like crazy, buying gangbusters. We're getting bid out on deals left and right. And I'm like, damn it. I'm like, like, I don't know, man. Like, all I can tell you is I'm not willing to buy something that doesn't work. Like, I'm not going to just, buy it for the sake of buying it and then try to figure out the business model after the fact. That's just, I think that's a recipe for failure. And so fast forward to the last 2 years, rates went up. A lot of our competition kind of died off. Either they're running damage control on, maybe assets they were paid for, or, debt, capital stack that was maybe not as well thought out or as well planned as what they had hoped. It's just for a litany of reasons. There's been some distress in the market, and so less competition last 2 years. While we had to look at a lot more deals, like the deals we picked up have been not distressed properties per se, but the distressed situations. And so we've done quite well. But again, we've been disciplined. The fundamentals haven't changed. Everything that we've bought, it's got a cash flow from day one. Like it truly has to have economic benefit from day one, even with the rates where they're at. And that's not putting variable rate debt on. Like we're a fixed rate kind of group of people. Like we literally only go in with fixed rate debt. We go in with lower than maybe what we could squeak out LTVs. Again, maybe the returns aren't as high as maybe what some other folks are projecting, but guess what? I haven't lost an ounce of sleep, in the last couple of years. We continue making distributions. We haven't missed a beat on distributions to investors, and don't have any deals at risk. And so, I guess back to your original question of like, we're still buying. We have to work a lot harder to find the deals. It's a little harder to raise capital for us than what it was, but again, the track record and us being able to kind of pull through, and even in tougher times, has really provided trust with our investors that we're the right place to be. We're the right place to for them to house their capital. So. Yeah. Anyway, I'll leave it at that.
First of all, congrats on having your biggest year ever. That's obviously very exciting. I'm curious to know, like, and I want to get to the buy box and all that things and kind of the criteria that you guys have for looking at deals. But like, what niches are you guys really focusing in on? Is it kind of, are you looking at everything as long as it cash flows, or are you really honed in on something specific?
No, great question. No, we're the stay in our lane type of guys. For basically from 2011 till the present day, mobile home parks had been our only niche, or the only thing we spent time on. I love other asset classes. I've got money in other commercial asset classes, but as far as like what we do as a company, we try not to dilute our focus and chase shiny objects. And so for up until basically like 4 years ago, it was only mobile home parks. It still is mobile home parks today. However, another asset class came on our radar, I think about 6 years ago. It took us a couple of years of studying it, determining whether or not there was a risk of it diluting our focus, to determine whether or not it was also a good complement to our current portfolio of mobile home parks and our investor base. So mobile home parks are the one, and then parking. So parking garages, parking lots is the other vertical. So those are the only two. That's where we spend all of our time. And even with the parking lots kind of added in, more than 2/3 of our portfolio is still made up of mobile home parks, with a third being parking.
Okay, so those are both very interesting niches. Let's talk about why mobile home parks, and then why you kind of diversified as well into parking garages.
Hey there, I just have a quick favor to ask. If you're getting value from Founders Club and you're watching on YouTube, just give us a like, hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on iTunes, leave us a 5-star review. These things are free to do, and it really helps the channel, and it also helps us be able to bring better guests for you in the future. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, and there's a lot of carryover between the two, and I think going back to the point of them being complementary for our portfolio and for our investor base. Really, at the end of the day, if you want to simplify both of them, you're renting a space, right? A mobile home park, or renting a space to a person that owns the mobile home themselves. In a parking garage or parking lot, we're basically renting the space to a vehicle that's going to sit there on a hourly, a weekly, or daily, weekly, or monthly basis, or maybe longer, right? And so like lots of similarities in that vein. But for mobile home parks, the niche there for us, what really attracted me to that space, and I've owned lots of multifamily. Prior to that, I've owned hundreds of single family rental units. So like residential has always been at my core. But way back in the day, we all drive past mobile home parks. It was just one of those asset classes that you didn't hear much about. I didn't know anybody that owned one, right? And so it just never was on my radar until roughly 2011, where I got introduced to the space. And when I was kind of on a rebuild stage leading out of 2008, my rebuild strategy was going to be solely focused on multifamily. That was going to be the thing that would help me kind of rebuild and do it more efficiently and do it better the second time around. And I had a lunch meeting with a guy by the name of Randy. Randy had been a commercial banker for 30 years, and I was introduced by a mutual friend. And that's all I knew about Randy. He was a banker. I knew he had recently retired. I didn't know anything else. I was just trying to expand my network and meet other folks, right? And I heard he was a great guy. So I had a 2-hour lunch meeting with him. He asked a lot about me, and we got into talking about real estate, kind of, how I lost everything in the crash, what I was going to do to kind of rebuild, what the plan was. Multifamily came up, and then he kind of stopped me in my tracks. He's like, well, I think you should really look at mobile home parks. He was like, let's talk about that for a little bit. He basically retired, but he said the 10 years prior to him retiring, most of his focus, a lot of his clients were here in Florida, and they were mobile home and RV park owners. And he came to find out, or he made the assumption that he was on the wrong side of the P&L, for a number of years, and saw how well his clients did. And you vowed to buy a couple mobile home and RV parks after, for his retirement. Basically, that was going to be his, call it his retirement, his pension plan, what have you. And he did that. So when I met him, he was 2 or 3 years post-retirement, owned a couple mobile home parks, and couldn't stop talking about them for those 2 hours of our lunchtime together. And there's a couple really big things that stuck out to me that really set me down that path. One of the biggest ones was, again, having owned a lot of residential property prior, being a landlord for a long time, and running a big management company. One of the big ones with the mobile home park stuff was the stickiness of the residents, stickiness of the clientele. They own their own units, and so it's no different than that of a subdivision. I mean, to them, they're living in a community. They're living really in a subdivision. The only difference is they don't own the land underneath them. They lease it instead of owning the deed to it. Outside of that, they do own their home. They own their home. And so whenever there's a maintenance issue, the roof leaks, the plumbing leaks, HVAC breaks, anything like that, they're not calling me like they would if I owned the apartment. They're calling the vendor, right, to fix it directly. And that's your responsibility. But, given that they're called mobile homes, they're not very mobile. They typically do not leave the community that they end up in. And so, per Randy's point, kind of one of these other things that stuck out to me was that he's like, even if your resident only lives there for 3 years, which is typically double that of an apartment rental, he's like, most of my residents, he was like, I've got residents that live there for decades. So, but like, even if they don't stay that long of a period, guess what happens? He's like, if they want to sell their home, they put it up for sale with FSBO or, with a realtor. They continue paying the lot rent, as it's for sale. New buyer comes in, gets qualified, assumes buys that home, assumes the responsibility of the underlying lot rent. They take over that responsibility, start paying it. So you never have the downtime, right? So like you got this perpetual cycle of income coming. Whereas if it's an apartment or rental home, you got downtime. The unit turns after 12, 18 months. You got downtime. You got make ready costs, expenses, and you got maybe a month, 2 or 3 of no revenue, right? And so that gets painful when that becomes recurring, whereas that doesn't really happen in the mobile home parks. So I was like, man, that sounds amazing. Sign me up for that. That was a big one. And then just again, the management responsibility is kind of tied in as well, as far as like the day-to-day management of what it looks like in a mobile home park where the residents own the units to that of a similar size apartment complex. Like we own communities that are as large as our biggest one is 738 sites. I mean, it's the size of a small city, right? Or a small town. And we literally have basically a full-time manager and then an assistant manager. And we are selling a lot of homes in there. We have a lot of brand new homes. So we do have a sales and leasing agent. But if we weren't selling homes in there, that whole community literally could run with 2 full-time individuals, which if that was an apartment complex, you'd have a team of folks, right? You'd probably have a dozen people kind of running the day-to-day and managing it. Just a lot more moving parts. So anyway, that really turned me on. I honestly, I don't remember the original question. I think you're kind of asking like why those 2 niches, but like that's what really turned me on and put me on the path of mobile home parks originally. There's many more I could kind of go into. Mom and pop ownership, it was very fragmented back when we got into it. For that reason, you could buy things that just had a lot of value left to be had. They weren't being professionally operated or managed or maintained. Capital hadn't been put back into them. The space has gotten consolidated quite a bit over the last decade or so. Lots of institutional capital coming into it, which pros and cons to that. But like there's this massive supply demand imbalance in our sector, but both in parking and mobile home parks. But in mobile home parks, like it's got a diminishing supply. Like literally there's more mobile home parks that get redeveloped every year than new ones that get built. And so you got the high demand that continually grows in a diminishing supply. And so you got this massive imbalance where if we know we buy something in a good market, great location, it's got a high demand for affordable housing, and we got a quality resident base, that thing's inherently going to go up in value every single year, without a doubt, because there's no new competition being built. And I don't really have to worry about a new one being built down the road. There's lots of other reasons for that, but like there truly is a massive barrier for new communities being built across the country. It just doesn't happen very often. In fact, there was a whole decade that went by. I think with the decade ending like 2019, there was like 97 communities built, new ones built, many more than that were torn down. So,
and why is that?
Yeah, it's two primary reasons. Number one, you got the NIMBY syndrome, not my backyard, right? Like, and everyone kind of lumps mobile home parks into the bad bucket, right? Like, there are definitely mobile home parks that are on the wrong side of the tracks, drugs, sex, rock and roll, all that kind of stuff. We all get lumped in that one bucket. However, there's just like an apartment community or just like a subdivision. I mean, you got that element, but then you have like the good old blue collar neighborhoods, right? Good hardworking folks. You got the white collar stuff that really isn't affordable. It's actually higher end, lifestyle type living. And that all exists in the mobile home park sector. However, we all get lumped into this bad bucket. And for that reason, you try to go build one in a municipality or local community, and you're going to get an uproar by the residents that are in the homes surrounding it, inevitably. And the second reason, probably even bigger, is the tax base. For the municipality that's being built to, number one, mobile home parks take up a lot of horizontal land. There's lots of footprint there. However, from a tax basis, really that land itself, it's got improvements, but nowhere near the type of improvements that a commercial building or a multifamily building might have sitting on top of that. And so for that reason, it's not the highest tax benefit for the municipality to allow a mobile home park to be built. In fact, it'd be a better tax benefit for them to just have just about any other thing built than that of a mobile home park. And so for that reason, while they say they need affordable housing, it's a huge demand, it's a huge need. Here's a solution. That's not really in our best interest. So we're not going to allow that to happen. So those are the two big reasons why they're not getting built.
I can see that. And you're right. There is a huge disparity. Like, we have some, here in Southern California that are right on the beach, where they built these like beautiful mobile homes that look like houses, and then you find the other ones that are kind of run down and need a lot of love. So I know a few people that are in this niche. I know there's not a lot of competition. I know it's, not nearly as big as like house flipping or some of these other, apartment syndicating, things like that. But one thing I hear a lot of people talk about is parks where people own their own spaces versus where the park owns the spaces. And I'm curious what your thoughts are on the distinction. And it sounds like you're really focused on the ones that it's just a spot and people bring their own unit in.
That's right. Yeah, that is. And so what you're really speaking to is and it might not be classified this in California. I think it is though. It's very common. You'll see them in Florida, you'll see them in Arizona, and you'll see them in California as well. Maybe a few other states, but those are the three primary states where I've noticed a large concentration of what are classified as co-op communities, where at some point it probably was entirely owned by one individual. Whoever developed the community developed it to where it was literally one large parcel where they had land lease agreements for each one of the respective lots inside the community. But over time, residents said, hey, we would love to own this community. Like, we want to own it, we want to run it. And they form a co-op, and there's a number of groups out there that will even help construct this type of organization, to where they help the residents come together, find the financing, find the financial means, put a board of directors or an HOA in place to help manage it. And so these things then become a scenario where the residents truly do own their little slice of land underneath them, but it's governed by an HOA. That's I think that's what you're speaking to. And again, there's lots of those in Florida, Arizona, and in California. In fact, we've even one time historically, we had a community in New York where we actually sold it. The residents really wanted to buy it. They were the best suited buyer for it, and they really wanted to own it. They wanted to run it, and we sold it to them. They brought a nonprofit group in to help them formulate the HOA and put the governance in place, and they bought it from us. And so now that today is a co-op. And I've also seen it go. I've also seen it go the other way. Honestly, like in Florida, I've seen a number of transactions that maybe were private originally, and then they went to a co-op. They were a co-op for 30 years. Maybe their treasurer didn't do the greatest job of managing the HOA, and maybe they didn't set aside the appropriate reserves or increase the HOA fees enough to set aside appropriate reserves to keep up with inflation and the cost of goods. And like, over time, this thing started to falling in disrepair, and there's no way out. Like, it was either, hey, all residents have to throw basically a capital injection or a special assessment back in, or the only way out of this thing, it's worth a lot. Everyone gets a check if we sell, but like, ultimately what's going to occur is we got to bring a private buyer back in, buy out the entirety of the underlying land. And now you guys will still own your home, but you'll have to start paying a land lease, a lot rental fee. And so I've seen it go the other way as well.
And
But no,
it
we're
sounds like
only interested in,
primarily,
we just want to own the land. I mean, that's
right.
our, we're not an HOA. Like we don't want to make money being an HOA. We want to own the land and, and allow the residents to own their own home.
Okay, so you basically buy a clean one, let people bring in their own units, and then rent them the space to put the unit on. And
Yeah.
what does the cash flow on something like that look like? Like break down like an average deal.
Yeah, and so we typically buy existing communities. So a lot of times, the normal deal we'll buy, maybe it was built 30 years ago. It could be owned by the original owner, maybe not, right? But either way, it's existing. In fact, I'll use an example of one we just closed on a couple weeks ago. It's a 221 space community in Kentucky. It was built roughly 35 years ago. It's traded hands, I think, 2 or 3 times. I think we bought it from the third owner. Original developer owned it though for like 20 years, and it's traded 2 more hands in the past decade or so. We purchased it. We identified that number one, it's in a great market. It's in really good condition. It's got good infrastructure in place. We feel as though there's a good bit of upside where the rents were today to where they should be in the marketplace. We identified some operational inefficiencies with, even what they're paying, like what the staffing looks like there, what they're paying the staffing. There's some excess there that we could kind of
Right.
cut down. This one also had some type of cable contract in place that was kind of legacy to the one of the original ownership groups, where it was costing the owner we bought it from about $100K a year, and he was providing internet and TV to all the residents. And we found that if we did an audit, that literally only like 30% of them were even using that plan, and most of them had like their own plan outside of that. Didn't even realize they had access to it. And so, we were able to cancel that contract, and obviously that goes all to the bottom line. We eliminated that expense, and then there was about 22 vacant lots in this community. So remember, 221 lots. Roughly 200 of them had homes on them, had homes that we didn't own. The residents own, they're paying lot rent, but there's 21 that are fully developed. All the utilities are run to them. Maybe historically at some point there was a home on them, but there is no longer today. And so the last part of our business plan would basically be bringing brand new homes in. We're a licensed dealer in all the states we own in, and so we could buy homes at cost from the manufacturer. We bring those brand new homes in, and then we have a sales program. Basically, we have third party banks that we work with, help folks get, instead of renting, they have the opportunity to come in and buy that home, help them get finance, and then they pay the underlying lot rent. And so, and our kind of MO is that whatever market we go in, like using that example, we'll give them a brand new home. Most of our homes are 3-bedroom, 2-bath, about 1,200 square feet. It's kind of the standard box size. They get much bigger than that, but that's kind of the standard box size. Our all-in cost, so between their debt service on the home, their taxes, insurance, and then the land lease costs that they're paying us to lease the land. If you compare it to maybe a comparable, call it B plus class apartment community in the immediate vicinity, you're going to find that we're still about 25 to 30% less than what they would be paying to rent something in an apartment than that of actually own the home, not have any neighbors immediately to their sidewalls or above them or below them. So
Mm.
that's kind of that's our model. Like our direct competition is not necessarily like normal stick built homes. Most of our resident base, maybe they don't have bad credit, they don't have perfect credit, but they've got some challenges there. They don't have 20% down payment. Maybe they've got 5 or 10% down. It's maybe their first home. They've got a young family. They're sick of renting. They don't want to do that anymore. They're sick of living in an apartment. And we can show them that this is a better way. This is a brand new home. You can actually own the home itself, so you can have something you have pride in. You don't have immediate neighbors above you, below you, either side. Get your own parking space out front. And most of our communities have clubhouses. They've got amenities. Some have pools, pickleball, tennis, basketball courts, things like that. So it's
Nice.
it's a value proposition that's much greater than that of them just renting your 1989 built B class apartment complex.
Yeah, no, I can see that. So where are you finding deals? Like, what's your, how are you sourcing your deals right
Yeah.
now? Or what
Yes.
advice would you give on that?
Yeah, I mean, for us, it's always been a lot of it's relationship based. I mean, again, we started this years ago. Back when we started buying parks, there weren't many. There was a couple brokerage groups in the space, um, but there weren't a lot. And so we took it upon ourselves to basically database not the entire U.S., but probably about 38 of the states in the U.S. And we went through and had a whole team that literally went and databased location of the park, the size of the park, dug into county records, dug into the LLC, found out who the managing members were. And we had skip tracing software to get their phone numbers, get their, home mailing addresses. So we kind of databased our own stuff from a long time ago. And so up until very recently, the majority of what we bought has been directly sourced off market to owner. Like we've been talking to the owner for a long time. We've curated a relationship with them, and ultimately, when the time came for them to sell, they thought of us, and it wasn't necessarily always based on who's going to pay the highest price. I'd say, hey, been talking to Kevin and his group for years. I like what they do, I like their business plan. A lot of the sellers we buy from, a lot of times are the original owners of the community, and so they've got a little bit of an emotional attachment as well. It's not just that, hey, who's going to give me the highest dollar amount. It's like, who's going to also, for them, it might be a legacy. Who's going to carry on this legacy? This community's put my family through school, my kids, my grandchildren, all that. Like, this has been a sourceful pride of joy, but also a monetary benefit for their family. And so they want to kind of, and they also grow attachments to the residents, right? Like, they've been serving their residents that live in the community for many decades. And so, so that's how we buy a lot of our communities. However, with that being said, since this asset class or this niche has gained a lot of traction over the last decade, there's many more brokerage groups that's popped up. I mean, lots of them now. All the big names, Colliers, Cushman, Marks and Millichap, CBRE, all of them have at least one mobile home park specific group, if not more than one. So now there's a lot of folks in the space. And so, we're only one group. We can only make so many phone calls. And so now we also leverage their relationships, and they're out there pounding the pavement continually, sourcing deals. And so, but for us in that instance, it's maintain a relationship with the broker. The broker might get in contact with the owner at the right time when they're ready to sell, make the decision to sell. And so today it's about 70% directly sourced by us and about 30% from brokers that we have relationships with. That's probably the breakdown here today.
Okay. So about 70% you're finding off market on your own with your team, and 30% is coming from brokers.
Yeah. Well, I should say that the 30% from brokers, probably only about 20% of that 30% is actually marketed deals, like truly that go to market to have a full blown offering memorandum. They go out to the mass marketplace. And now if it's off market from the broker, they still might kind of hand, not just me, it might go to a couple people, just say, hey, I know this is an area that you like to buy. This is right up your alley from what I know. Kind of put forth your best offer, and we'll see if we can get this guy to make a move. But it doesn't mean I'm the only one.
Which is actually a great tip, because you've proven through your track record that you're a legit buyer, and so now these brokers are calling you before they even list it to say, hey, I got a deal that you might be interested in. Do you want to take a look? And then, to your point, maybe they have a few other people on the Rolodex, maybe they don't, but that's definitely a great way to generate some opportunities.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
about, like, what's your buy box, right? You talked about your buy box earlier. What is it that you look for in a mobile home park to make it a successful cash flow deal and to kind of check all your boxes?
Yeah, I mean, and so the first thing we look at, even before the mobile home park itself, is the market that it's in. Everyone knows the old adage of location, location, location. So for us, we're providing an affordable product. So first and foremost, it's got to be in an area that actually has a demand for affordable housing. And surprisingly enough, there are parts of the country that still you can go buy affordable stick-built homes. There's parts of Michigan, there's parts of Iowa, there's parts of rural Indiana. I mean, there's a lot of areas where you can still buy stick-built homes for under $100,000, maybe even probably $50,000-$60,000 that are actually livable, habitable homes. And so first and foremost, we've got to be in an area that's got a decent population. So kind of our minimum baseline population is 100,000 people. The bigger, the better, right? Like the more of a population, the better for us. We want to know that it's got a lower than average unemployment rate. We want to know there's jobs available for people, right? And there's somewhere for them to work, and there's some economic or employment diversity for them. We want to be in a good school district. Most of our folks their families, they've got children of different ages. And even if they're living in an affordable home, they want to send their kids to the better school. So we know that we want to be in a good school district, because if we're there, no matter what condition the park is when we buy it, we can improve it and attract the right quality of people that we want in there, even if they're not in there when we take it over. Whereas if it's in a rural location, or it's in an area that's not in a good school district, it's on the wrong side of town. While it might be maybe even a good looking park, good community, but it's in the surrounding area is not great. I can't fix all those other factors. I can't control the part of town it's in. And, just because the park looks good, I can't change all those other dynamics. And so I won't be able to attract the type of tenant base I want or the resident base I want. So, outside of that, I want an area that's growing, that, so not a declining population. And there's caveats to that rule of thumb. For example, we're closing on a park here in about 2 weeks. It's right outside of Ann Arbor, Michigan. If you look at Michigan as a whole, the state itself, it's definitely not, it's not going gangbusters with the population growth, right? Like there's little pockets here and there that have population growth, and then you take Detroit, like Detroit has a declining population. It has for years, right? Like it typically has a higher than average unemployment rate, but Metro Detroit kind of skews all those numbers, right? There's a ton of gorgeous subdivisions in the suburbs of Detroit that most folks just lump Detroit all in one bad bucket, kind of like mobile home parks get lumped, right? But there's plenty of really nice subdivisions and great public schools in the suburbs of Detroit. And so we kind of really get in at a granular level, like as far as when we start looking at like unemployment rates and jobs and employment diversity in the area. But really, we want a good location that people enjoy living, that home prices are too high they kind of outprice our demographic. And so median home prices are 200,000 plus. And we know that for that reason, like our typical buyers no time soon is going to be able to buy that $200,000 house, but they still want a home. And then, like I said, lastly is the apartment rents. Like, what are the competing apartment rents in the immediate area? And we want to know that based on where we need to be on our numbers, our lot rent, what the total payment's going to be for the home that we might be selling them, is going to be 25 or 30% less than that of the competing apartments in the immediate vicinity. So, because that truly, apartments are our direct competition, and we want to know that we have the best value proposition to offer. And so, those are some of the big ones. I know that's a lot, but those are some of the big things that we look at.
No, that makes sense. Yeah.
When we determine, and then outside of that, there's like the basic things, like it's got to be we do deep dives and due diligence. Like the infrastructure's got to be in good shape. Like it's got to have a good layout. It's got to have large enough size lots where we can bring in new modern homes. Like a lot of parks that were built 60, 70 years ago, back then the mobile homes were like a fraction of the size.
The single wides.
Yeah, but even the single wides today are very different. Like the single wides of back 70 years ago were 10 feet wide by 38 feet long. Today, our standard single wide that we bring into a community is 16 by 80. I mean, completely different size box. And so we want to know that we can bring a new modern size home in and fit it in one of the lots that are there. And so a lot of these older parks actually don't even work for us because we couldn't get rid of an old home and bring in a new one and have it fit.
No, I like that. It makes a lot of sense. Especially, I like the tip also of like comparing to rents of apartments, because I think that's really kind of your buyer, is that they want that deal on versus just going up against a buyer. What about exit strategy on some of these? Are you guys holding these for a long time? Are you generally going in, redeveloping, and then selling in a few years? Like, how do you guys look at that?
I would say our strategy has evolved quite a bit over the years. We've gone full cycle on just shy of 20 mobile home parks over the last, call it, I guess you're probably 7 or 8 years. However, I would say, Oliver, one of my biggest regrets is probably about 12 or 13 of those I wish we would not have sold. While we killed it, the returns were incredible. No one knows a property better than someone that already owns it, right? Like you kind of work out all the skeletons, all the kinks, like all the variables get kind of worked out over the first couple of years of ownership. And so it's hard to, every time you go to buy something new, you got the same crap you got to deal with again, right? You got to work out all the kinks. And then to add to that, in mobile home park space, they're not building more of them, right? And so every time we sell one that was performing incredibly well, while we might hit huge returns for our investors, we got to go. It makes it more difficult. We got to go find something else to buy, and we're competing against this minimal or diminishing supply with more buyers trying to buy it, and so like it inherently becomes harder year after year. And so we've really evolved our strategy over the last probably 3 or 4 years, where now it's a buy and hold, with the idea that in order to return investor capital, we're going to do refinance events, right? Like tax-free refinance events as many times as we have to, but knowing that the assets we have, they're irreplaceable. There's a massive barrier to entry in the market. They perform well. And they'll be in demand today and they'll be in demand 20 years from now. So what's the point of selling them? So we really honed our strategy more to that. And just thinking about, 20, 30 years down the road than just short-sightedness. And, one of the other things that prompted that strategy change outside of just being able to, the difficulty in finding new replacement properties was, the investor base. It's interesting. You do your first couple big events where you return capital to investors and sell a deal. And then you get a couple that call you up pissed, not pissed at the returns you gave them, but pissed because you created this massive tax event for them, right? You make a lot of money, you pay a lot of taxes, but investors and entrepreneurs, they want to figure out ways to mitigate taxes, right? And so that became an issue. Like just trying to find a way to strategically still serve our investors, but mitigate their tax consequences for them. Because again, we create a win for them, we create another problem. They got to go find something else to buy now, and they also have to pay the tax man a big bill. So, and one of the reasons for investing in real estate, so we can actually help offset taxes. So many reasons, but now we're really focused on buy and hold long term, and that means 10 plus years. No one knows what the future holds, but everything that we've built internally is geared around at least 10 years of ownership and probably 15 or 20. I'm 45. I'm a little older than my business partner, so his legacy plan is slightly different than mine. He's in his he's 37, so, and he's got young kids. I've got an 8 and 11-year-old. I'm 45, and while I don't think I'll ever stop working, I might not necessarily want to be doing the exact same thing 20 years from now, right? But who knows? We don't know.
Right. Okay. No, I like all that. So I keep hearing you talk about your investors. And so my next question was going to be how you're funding these deals. Like, how do you put together a typical deal? It sounds like maybe some sort of traditional financing with investors, or is it a syndication? Or how do you guys go about doing that?
Hey, real quick, we are growing our nationwide real estate team and we are looking for agents and brokers who want to be a part of it. When you join our inner circle, you'll have access to private trainings, 100% commission real estate plans, stock awards, and the ability to refer agents to build a downline for passive income. Best part is you get 188 pieces of print marketing collateral for free on every listing to help you sell more homes. To learn more, visit 100commissionrealestate.com. That's the number 100commissionrealestate.com, or send me a message on any of my social media accounts. Links in the description below, and we'll look forward to talking to you. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, we do fund structures, but it's very akin to that of a syndication. We're just doing multiple deals underneath one umbrella than that of individual standalone syndications. But yeah, I mean, we put typically somewhere between 60 to 65% debt in place, and then the remainder is equity. I mean, it's a pretty simple capital stack.
Yep.
All of our investors are high net worth accredited investors. We do it underneath a Reg D 506C umbrella, and that's how we've done it literally for the last 10 years or so.
Nice. So you said it's about 65% debt and the rest is the equity.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. So how now let's talk about, like, once you acquire a one of these parks, what are you looking to do in terms of value adds? And I'm guessing the goal is to, increase the rents per pad or whatever. How do you guys approach that, or what do you guys look to do to increase values?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I guess I'll just use another, a case study, 'cause I think it's the easier way to kind of paint the picture. This is of the deal we're about to close in a couple of weeks. It's we're outside of Ann Arbor. It's a 503 space community. It's been actually owned by the same family that developed it back in the late 80s, early 90s. And so it's never transacted before. And what we find in these situations, they've done a great job of operating it. It's absolutely beautiful. It's all double wides. Most of these homes have 2-car attached garages. It doesn't even look like a mobile home park. It almost looks like a ranch subdivision. A subdivision, all ranch homes in it.
Nice.
And so, but in this instance, a couple of things. They don't own anything on. They've had zero debt on it for many years. They own it free and clear. And so, they've kind of, in the last 10 years, they've fallen for a couple of reasons, but mostly just, if they keep up with, if they just kept up with inflation, The owner's lifestyle really wouldn't change that much. I mean, he's probably walking away on an annual basis. I don't know the exact, I don't remember the exact, but he's probably taking home $800,000, $900,000 in his pocket every year, right? And so if he raises rents by $25 or $30 on an annual basis, well, that's going to put more money in his pocket. It's really not going to change his lifestyle, right? And so what we see it quite often with mom and pops, they tend to skip. They'll go 3, 4, 5 years without keeping up with inflation, and
Mm.
and so in this community, the average rents in the immediate marketplace are in between $750 and $800 a month just for the lot. And their average lot rents today are $488. And so there's a massive disparity between where the current rents are to where the market rents are. And so that's a big one. So while we're not going to do that overnight, we've got like a 5-year plan to stagger into it. That's one big lever that can be pulled there that'll add a ton. I mean, you can just do the back of the napkin math there. It adds a multiple millions of dollars worth of value over time by doing that. The other big one in this community is it's 503 lots, and there's I believe there's 58 vacant pads that just never had homes on them. You know, I don't know the whole story, but you know, the father built this, the son now owns it, the son's 68, and over at some point in time, they just stopped bringing new homes in for sale. And so there's 58 pads that are fully developed, all infrastructure's there, but the home's not there. And so we're a dealer in Michigan. We're going to go buy brand new homes and set them, all from for sale, and basically capture that additional revenue that's going to be generated by those 58 or so lots that now will be in those the ones that we bring the new homes in on. They will immediately go to market at $750 a month. Whatever the lot rent is at that time, they'll immediately go to market. So they won't start back at the 488, which the rest of the community is at. They'll go immediately to market at 750. So there's a lot of massive value captured there.
And then you're also, it sounds like, profiting on the actual sale of the house itself.
Yes and no. So like that's an area. In fact, that's an area where I think the current owner has probably made a mistake, at least as far as like a long-term vision was concerned. So we have the ability to, but another reason why he has kind of artificially kept his rents a little low, even on the new homes he brought in, is he wanted to make so most of our demographic that we serve, they really they buy something on a mentality based around what's the total monthly payment. It's not what am I paying for this thing? It's like, what's the total monthly payment and can I fit this within my budget, right? And so for that reason, when he would bring a new home and let's say he would be all into it for $120,000, he might turn around. I think his average sales price, he was selling them for $160,000 to $190,000. But how he was doing that and how he was making such a spread, that topside margins, because he was keeping his lot rents at that $488. In fact, in some occasions, he was even locking them in and guaranteeing them that amount for like 5 years straight. And so but it's short-sighted because ultimately the value on a capitalized rate at that $750 or $800 a month lot rent is significantly more than that 50 or so $1,000 he might have profited on that top side.
So he
So
was
for
making a little
us,
more up front, but he was shooting himself on the
that's
foot
right.
on the back.
That's right. And so for us, like it's all we really care to do. We don't want to. It's always nice to make a profit on the home sale, but for us, I want to move it as fast as possible. I don't want it sitting there for 3 months. I want to get it absorbed as fast as possible because get someone living in there. And so for that, as long as we just get our original money back out of it, that's it. Literally, what we have into it for the home, the setup cost, and then the holding period that we have it. As long as we get that back and we can pass that discount on to the new buyer, number one, it gives them a great deal. Number two, allows us to, again, we can now get our lot rent up to where it really needs to be right out of the gate. And they're still in at that all in total monthly payment. And I know that in the long run, we're much better served in our, and us and our investors and all that's as far as evaluation is better served with that higher lot rent than us trying to make that quick pop on that home sale. So we take a little bit of a different approach than a lot of mom and pops do. And that's pretty common in other professional operators like ourselves. Like we really don't try to make money on the homes, just get it gone as fast as possible. If it's a difference of selling it in like a week or 4 months, just to squeak a little bit more out of it, I'd rather sell it in a week and bring more homes in. I want to get these things filled up as fast as possible and get the community to
that makes
kind of like a
sense.
stable point.
Totally. And then are you guys setting that up kind of like a new home community where you just bring in one unit and put it on the pad? Or are you buying 58 units and filling every single one and selling them off individually?
It's a great question. I mean, it's all market by market. it really depends on we'll gather data. We'll run test ads. We'll look at other communities, what their current occupancy is, if they're selling homes, how many are they selling on a monthly basis. Like, so we'll try to collect data to make some real world assumptions as to how many homes are we going to be able to sell in a given, month or two or three or season. Like in Michigan, it's kind of a season thing because it gets, come November or definitely by December, like home sales basically slow to a snail's pace, right? No one's going out looking at homes when it's like 10 degrees outside. I mean, it's just, and plus we don't want vacant homes sitting around when it's 10 degrees outside, right? Like it's just, you got a lot of utility costs having to sit there. Lots of things can happen when they sit vacant in the cold weather, pipes freeze and all that. And so for that reason, like we look at like that park's going to be on a seasonality basis. And I think in that one, we have it to where I think our first year, which will start, we're going to close in a couple weeks. And then we'll put homes on order. And then our first couple homes will probably start coming in March of next year, right when the thaw is kind of happening. And I think our intent the first year is to bring in, I think it's 14 homes. And then there's 58 total. So the remainder of that 58 is going to take place in the second and third year. So I think 14 the first year, and then the second and third year, once we've got momentum, right? So we don't want to overburden ourselves the first year. We want to kind of pick a number that we feel very comfortable with, that like, there's no way that we won't be able to occupy these 14 homes, sell them, and occupy them. We think we could do more, but let's be conservative the first year. That will give us the data we can run from the second, third year. But second, third year is the plan to kind of ramp it up quite a bit.
No,
But we've had communities where we brought in 50 homes in a year and got them sold. So it really depends. It really depends on the market.
Yeah. And yeah, I guess the weather is obviously a big factor too in certain markets, like you said.
Yeah, like where
So
you live, we could bring in homes where I live and where you live. I mean, literally, it's a year-round thing. There's no point in time where you can't bring a home in, right? Like there's no restrictive
exactly.
nature due to the weather.
Most definitely. So what other tips do you have for underwriting deals for someone that was thinking about, getting into this space?
If you're looking for a little bit of extra help growing your real estate business or brokerage, make sure you check out my consulting links in the description below, and I'll work one on one with you to give you the help you need. Now back to the episode.
I don't know if I have any specific tips for underwriting like mobile home parks, but I think it more relates to, I think the mistake I see a lot of folks make is not understanding like what is their target objective. Like, is it for them, or if it's their money, if they're buying it as their own investment, or they bring investor capital in. But you got to first know what that is. Like, what do you hope? What are your ideal returns on a personal level, or your investors? Like, what are they expecting? Because you can really you could back into what the underwriting model needs to look like, once you know the answer to those questions. And so, for us, like I know what those answers are. So like we run our buy box and we run our underwriting model around basically whether or not it's going to help us achieve our goal and our investors' goal and hit the returns that we're targeting. Surely there's never a guarantee, but we kind of back into it. But the starting point is, what do our investors need? What are we, not promising them, but what are we, setting their expectations at? Or again, if it's just your own capital, what are your expectations? Like, what do you expect your ROI to be and is it a 10-year hold? Are you looking to get in and out? Is it a 1 to 2 year thing? Like, just understanding that and the answers to those can easily help you back into what the underwriting parameters need to be. So I don't think it's necessarily, asset specific. It's more investor specific. And then you should have the answers of what the underwriting needs to look like in order to, green go or red pass. Like, this is never gonna in a million years hit the returns that we need it to hit.
Yeah. And then one thing I heard you say earlier is cash flow from day one.
That's right. Yeah, for us, that's important. I mean, that probably does eliminate a number of deals that could have a lot of potential upside. But how we look at it is, if it doesn't have some type of cash flow from day one, you're already starting in reverse. Like, you're already chasing kind of your tail, trying to play catch up. And if all the other assumptions don't play out, like if you most of what we see, at least in our niche, if it doesn't cash from day one, it's because, again, using an example of a community, if it's a 200 space community, maybe it's only got 40 homes in it right now. But you're going to be paying for some of those improvements. You're going to pay for all those other vacant lots. You're going to pay for land. You're going to pay for the you're going to pay for the entirety of the park. Although you only got 40 units in there actually producing revenue. You got groundskeeping for a massive community. You've got taxes based on a large plot of land. But again, the revenue of those 40 home sites is probably not going to be enough to put you in a positive cash flow state based on what you'd have to pay for that community. And so now you got to play catch up. And now you better be, if it's something you've owned in an area you've owned, at the back of your hand, and you can literally, you would die on your deathbed with your assumptions and know that they're absolutely 100% correct. Maybe I would do it, but like most of the time that's not the case. So, cause you got to make assumptions and they better come true. Otherwise you're going to be in a world of hurt, especially if you've got investor capital where like it's accruing a pref, and it's like literally you're literally chasing your tail the entire time, trying to catch up on that pref, trying to dig yourself out of a hole. That's why we don't do it. It's just like I'm conservative by nature. I know there's enough of what we need to buy that cash flows from day one that I don't necessarily have to venture out and take additional risk. And we can hit the returns we need. We can build a sustainable business, and we don't have to speculate in order to make the returns. There's nothing wrong with that business, and I've seen many people make a lot of money doing it. It's just a different business model.
No, I get that completely. Get the money now.
That's right.
And then what about like any red flags that are like deal killers for you? Even if a deal looks good, like if it has this or that, like you would stay away.
Yeah. Again, we talked about the market, the location of the market. So that's to me, that's a given. But if it's in the wrong part of town, just know that you can never change the surroundings. You can't change the part of town. So like just that's a big red flag. Like I just move on. If it's in a rural area that's on the path of progress, and while it might be a pretty community, it's out kind of in the middle of nowhere, people have to drive an hour to get to any jobs. Like there's a chance you might make it if it's been making it for 20, 30 years. But like whenever you have a vacancy, I can guarantee it's going to take quite some time to get that filled back up, like that. So we just steer clear of that kind of stuff because there's just too many variables of risk associated with it. Outside of that, I'd say the big one is, a lot of these parks were built many, many decades ago. The height of the mobile home park boom was like the 50s through like the 70s and 80s, but with a large concentration being built 50s and the 50s, 60s, 70s. And so the infrastructure is old, the material they used back then, like cast iron and all that, they don't use that stuff today. And I guess what, if the soil that it's in is high mineral contents and, hard minerals, that stuff doesn't last at all. It deteriorates over time. And so I think the biggest red flag, it doesn't mean you back out of the deal, but you better do a lot of due diligence. We spend a lot of time, a lot of money on hiring engineers, scoping sewer lines, checking out well systems, sewer systems, and making sure that we're not getting ourselves, because you can't see what's underground unless you hire the professionals that have the equipment to see underground. But those were like the underground is where a lot of the big gotchas lie, at least in the mobile home park, because everything you see above ground, while there might be some skeletons here or there, like it's kind of, you see what you get, you get what you see. I mean, you can see most of it. You can't see underground, and those things turn into multi-million-dollar mistakes. And there's 3 parks we had under contract earlier this year. It's kind of an anomaly for us as well, because they were 3 actually decent looking communities. They all needed a little bit of work. It's same owner, so you kind of like the storyline made sense. Like he had owned them for 12 years, didn't really put a lot of money back into them. They had some vacancies. Again, just he wasn't budging correctly. He'd always take the money out but never put it back in. But everything that I could see above ground is like, this is our game. Like we can fix all this stuff. It's in a great area. We end up spending about $100,000 on due diligence. So 3 separate communities, right? I mean, normally you're talking like 25 grand we'll spend between like scoping sewers, bringing in engineers to address the well systems or private sewer systems, electrical pedestals and things like that. We want to know if the electrical infrastructure can handle new updated modern homes that need 200 amp service, all that type of stuff. But once we got into the underground, all 3 of these communities were a complete disaster in different ways. I mean, like the sewer lines were a complete mess. There were joints that were missing everywhere throughout the community. The well systems were in horrific shape, out of regulatory compliance. I mean, there was a massive leach field that served half of one of the large communities that was completely failed. So literally right out of the gate, you got like 40 homes that literally their sewer was backing up in their house, that we weren't made aware of. all this stuff that like it's all fixable with money. And it was to the tune of about $500,000 that we could have gone and fixed it. But the time and the manpower and the bandwidth necessary to handle all those major projects, getting permitting and dealing with seasonality. This is in Michigan again, right? So you got cold months. I was like, man, life is too short. There's easier money to be made somewhere else. I just don't want to take on the burden of this. And as you dig, as you know, you've been in real estate a long time. As you start digging into what you think is going to be $500,000, I can promise you, it's going to be more than that. It's going to be more than that. It's going to cost you a lot more than that. So, we spent $100,000. We literally ate $100,000 of due diligence cost, and we are not getting it back. So, but that was $100,000 to save,
a lot of headache,
a few million bucks. Yeah. And a lot of headaches. So due diligence on the underground utilities is a critical factor.
Nice. No, that's a good tip. I like that because you can see everything above ground, but underground's a whole different story. So that's
right.
Good. You can save those projects for someone else.
That's right.
So just as we start to wrap up here, I would say, in 60 seconds or less, what does it take to be a successful mobile home investor?
Yeah, I don't know if it's just a mobile home. I think any type of investor. I think again, we talked about the buy box, like really defining your buy box, understanding why you're buying, what you're buying. Will it achieve your financial objective, your ROI, whatever that metric is you're using to measure it. And then once you identify that, being disciplined and you're looking at a lot of deals, right? To find the one that actually fits that buy box. I mean, I don't want to make it sound that simple, but it really is. Know what you want, and then look at a ton of stuff, talk to a lot of people, turn over a lot of stones until you find. I can promise you, there's more than one out there that fits your parameters. Be disciplined enough to wait until you find it, and when you find it, don't get cold feet. Pull the damn trigger on it, right, and buy it and move forward.
Love that. That's great advice. Well, I certainly appreciate you coming on today, Kevin. It's been very insightful. For those that want to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Yeah. So if you want to find out what we're doing over at Sunrise Capital, it's the name of my group. You can go to investwhatsunrise.com, learn about what we do in the mobile home park and the parking sectors. My personal website's kevinbupp.com. There I also host a commercial real estate podcast. It's called Real Estate Investing for Cash Flow. You can listen to the episodes there, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. And then lastly, I'm very busy on LinkedIn. You can find me on Instagram as well and Facebook. But my last name's unique enough that if you just type in Kevin Bupp on any of those social platforms, you can track me down.
Awesome. Well, definitely check him out. Get connected with him. Also, check out his book on Amazon. Check out his podcast. He's doing big things. And as always, make sure you check out the links in the description below. And if you like money and you like real estate, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one. Thanks a lot, Kevin.
Thanks, Oliver. Appreciate you having me.